Hi, I'm Bill, the artist behind the art class demos and some of the other art instruction videos that you've seen on my channel. I hope you've enjoyed the videos and that somehow they've helped you in your journey as an artist. At the end of this video, I'm going to talk to you about Patreon. It's a program that I learned about just in the last couple of months. So watch at the end of the video and I'll explain what Patreon is all about. All right, so we'll get started here showing how to do some fall aspen tree leaves. And I'd have to let me grab a couple other big brushes, since these are still used and probably not quite the colors to start with. I forgot my walnut oil. There we go. Yeah, shift around until you can see well.
You know, Bill, you talked last night about the brushes, and I'm wondering if the soap isn't as damaging as I am on a brush, because you said you don't use soap and water.
Well,
Often.
Yeah, I can't remember the last time I washed my brushes with soap and water.
Okay.
They have soaps that are not going to damage the brushes too bad, but I just don't need them when I use the Terpenoid Naturals. That works out beautifully for cleaning my brushes.
Said to leave
Dawn dish soap.
Yeah, in the brush.
Leave Dawn in the brush.
Why? To make it smoother when you paint.
Well, I prefer not to have any soaps in my brushes,
Yeah.
because I think I don't want to have anything that might interfere with my paint.
Okay.
You don't know if it cause it to lift it, so
Mhm.
you want to have a
Yeah.
So I'd rather just, I mean, the Terpenoid Naturals, all I have to do is take my, in fact, I'll do this so that you can have it on the video later, but I just rub it out like that.
Yeah, see, I've watched you do that before.
And eventually, the brush will get to where
Clean.
it no longer produces any color.
Do you get the
in there.
Terpenoid Naturals here, or do you order?
I order online. I think generally I get it through Utrecht. That's where I order most of my paints. Even though I use some Gamblin paints, I use mostly Utrecht, but I always still order the Gamblin through Utrecht. And I get most of my,
Green in the brush.
yeah, there's some thick paint in there. So that's how I wash my brushes. It's a little bit tedious, you know, it takes some time, but then,
But if it saves the brush, I swear between the way I put paint on a canvas and I guess the soap,
Well,
I can tear up a brush in no time.
considering this stuff can take out old dried in paint, and yet it's non-toxic, and I don't have to worry about fumes.
Right,
I don't have any of the health risks
yes.
involved with it, except for, you know, of course, keeping paint off my hands, but this is not going to soak through my skin because I'm not using a turpentine that actually does soak through the skin and get into the bloodstream. This stuff isn't going to affect me adversely. And
Now I have to stop trying to keep the Dawn in the brush because I kept.
I've never liked the idea of having soap in my brush. I know they used to talk about that so that it will keep its shape and that sort of thing. I've heard people say that before. My brushes keep a nice sharp edge without me ever putting anything in them. I mean, the Terpenoid Naturals, of course, is a solvent, so it does help.
If Dawn takes oil out of a baby dog, I mean, it's going to take your paint off your canvas, isn't it?
Oh, is that what they use to, is that one of their commercials or something?
Yeah,
Using Dawn to get oil out of a baby duck?
Hey, Danny knows.
When they get an oil slick, you know, like when the ship makes a spill,
Yes,
they get
the oil spills,
Yeah.
sure.
Right?
rescue the animals with Dawn.
Well, you can see with this brush now, well, if you look at it, it has a very thin, crisp edge, and my brushes always keep that kind of an edge. I don't have to do anything else to them. I just put them back down here on my brush holder, and they're good to go. And even I mean, some of these brushes, I've had this one for at least 3 or 4 years, and it's still as sharp as a razor's edge there. And I have to be able to get them down to a sharp edge, because I like to be able to use have the control that comes with that. Doesn't mean that I don't beat them up, and eventually they will wear down. Let's see, like this guy right here doesn't have as sharp an edge, and it's getting pretty worn overall. Actually, I think this was a flat.
Oh, it was a flat?
Yeah, it's just gotten, it's just from, yeah, it's just rounded from use.
Oh, okay. I can round.
Same with that one right there. It's just getting a little bit rounded and beat down just from the use of it. And they go from being like a size 4 down to eventually a size 2. So, but I think Clyde Aspavig, I talked about last night, he's one of the top landscape painters in the world. He just buys his brushes by the box because he beats them up pretty quickly.
How do you spell his last name?
Aspevig. But I haven't found that, I mean, the way that I do my gesso on the panel, it's not as rough as some of the textured canvases. So I think that helps to preserve my brushes as well. And the way that I clean them, they last a lot longer than they used to for me. In the old days,
How do you do that to start it?
I mean, like in the old days, back in the 90s, you can see this brush right here, put it in the screen. It's very worn, and it doesn't get nearly as crisp an edge as some of these others do. But that's because I painted it more on canvases and things when I had this. And this one, though, is about 25 years old, 30 years old maybe. So it's had a lot of use out of it. All right. Yeah, Terpenoid Naturals has a lot of great benefits. Just don't use it as a real solvent for your painting. It mentions that you can use it as a solvent, but like I said last night, I did a painting back in the 90s, the early 90s. It was about a 30 by 50 inch painting, and I used that like I'm using the walnut oil, the Terpenoid Naturals. I had just started really using that, and the painting never dried. I kept waiting and waiting and waiting, and it just didn't dry. So, in fact, I think that was a commission piece. So, I don't remember the final outcome of that, but it wasn't pretty. All right.
Can I ask you a question?
Mm-hmm.
This stuff.
Galkid?
Yeah.
The Galkid medium that I was trying out, it dries and gets tacky too quick for me.
It's
So.
solidified in my bottle.
Yeah, that's part of the.
I can't get it out.
Oh, take
I
the
think that's what spilled in my purse.
Terpenoid Naturals and pour some in there, and it'll start to
Okay.
loosen it up, dissolve it, and then you can eventually
So we don't use
get it
that.
out of there. I don't use the Galkid anymore. I'm using the walnut oil just because the Galkid, it might be handy because it dries more quickly, but it dries, I like to keep, with the Alla Prima, I like it all to be more fluid than that, and that was drying too fast for
Where do you
me.
get the walnut oil? Also from Dick Blair?
I have a big gallon container, just like these.
I got a little
So I think this is from Daniel Smith.
artwork.
This is the walnut oil that I have, and I don't know if that's coming through on there or not,
That's a big one.
but this is M. Graham and Company. Pure alkali refined oil. Extends oil color for increased flow, non-yellowing, slow drying. So it works out really nicely. I've had that container for about 20 years. So it'll last you a while. So it's nice that way. All right, what do I need here? And I should have gone by Art Mart today. I need some more Cad Yellow Lemon. I ran out of Cad Yellow. I couldn't believe it. I have like 3 or 4 tubes of Cad Yellow Medium. I didn't even notice that I was missing the lemon. So, okay, let's see. All right, so now we'll get started here.
Am I in your way?
Nope, not at all. You're just perfect right there.
They're so perfect.
That's right. In fact, you know what? So it's a little bit more expeditious rather than trying to reach down in there so too often. I'm going to put a little bit more walnut oil back into my container here.
Because he's got big.
Because I have a big container, I can get as much as I want. Y'all just back off now. All right, there we go.
Huh?
The yellow edges on hollyhocks.
Mm. Yeah, those are fun hollyhock ones. I like those.
Those are your favorite, right? Or roses are your favorite?
Oh, I love doing hollyhocks. Roses are fun too. I do a lot of roses. I mean, it's all fun. Okay, so in here we've got a nice bright sky, and I'm going to use that because the yellows and oranges and all will play against that nicely. And then we'll maybe put that mountain back there a little bit behind as well.
So are you going to wash that first?
Am I going to what?
Wash it? Is that what you call it?
Yeah, with some walnut oil?
Yeah.
Yes. So I get my manganese here. And I think my paint's dried out a little bit overnight. Sorry, I didn't even check for that. That's terrible. All right. And it's going to be more white than blue, so I'm going to wipe this off after I get some color on here. And that color comes way down.
Are you taping this?
Yep, we are live. Eventually, when I have things set up, I'll try to do these maybe live too, so that when someone like Debbie can't make it to the class because she's sick, she can watch from home and still interact with everything. I've got I have the software and everything, the cameras for doing it. I just need somebody manning the computer so they can switch from screen to screen that way. All right. And this is where the brush texture on the reason I do my own gessoing of the panels, that brush texture already makes more interest in here than just putting down a continuous film of color. All right. That manganese is just about perfect for doing a bright, sunny sky. So cobalt is so popular with so many artists, but I love manganese. It's worked out well for me. And I'll get a little bit ultramarine here up towards the top, just so we can kind of get the a little bit warmer, darker tone towards the top of the painting. It helps. There's something about that well, for one, it helps with distance. It makes it feel like the sky is progressing up. It's not necessarily going to be there very strongly, but just putting a little bit of that darkness towards the top can give a little bit more depth to the painting. I don't know exactly how to explain what that does for it. Same thing as putting a little bit darker towards the bottom on foreground as well. It helps bring the foreground, it's stronger, and it helps bring the foreground forward, closer to the viewer. That's kind of with the sky. We see that if we're out there and we see a sky large and there's nothing obstructing it, and we look from the horizon up to the top of the sky, you're going to see a shift from much lighter towards the horizon, and it darkens as it gets up higher, because the sun isn't bleaching it out as much at the top. Of course, the sun isn't interfering with things as far as the top of the sky. If you're looking right at the sun, it's going to be different than what I'm talking about right now. But if you just see a blue sky, nothing's there to obstruct it, the sun or anything else, it's going to be lighter towards the bottom and darkens even by small degrees as it goes up. So just throwing in a little bit of dark up here at the top will help to create that feeling that happens naturally. All right, so I might actually want to get a little bit more just light in that sky. Let me see. Although now that I have that ultramarine on my brush, it might be a little bit too warm. I want more of the almost a turquoise, cool turquoise look to it. So that right there looks almost more cobalt because I had that ultramarine in it. So I'll probably have to wipe that off because I don't really want that. It's just not as bright and sunny feeling. Okay. So I'm gonna start moving through fairly quickly with some of this and just try to lay in some things. That way you guys can get to painting and we won't worry about trying to finish this off in every area. Okay, so we've got a sky. Let's put in a quick hill here. And just so that there's something there in the background. Alright, and maybe put, so just grab some transparent earth red so we can create it a bit different there. Like the foothills, we have some that are more grasses, and then we get up into the rockier areas. And okay, so then I'll take and start laying in some of the fall trees that are up here in the foreground. In fact, I'm gonna, no, I'll start with the bright and then I'll lay in some darker colors, darkers.
to you last night. Rosie, how's he doing? Good, yeah.
Grab a little alizarin crimson to warm that up. Then I'll just start getting a little bit more as we go. And so we're not too worried at the beginning stages about being careful with detail or any of that. And since I'm going to be doing this fairly quickly, I'll start getting some actual paint on here too that we can move around and manipulate. The fun stuff. And then changing up the paint color as we go is always good, getting that constantly varying what we're putting on here. So right now it's going to feel a little bit like a disorganized mess, which is what it is. But eventually we'll change that. All right. This must be an 11 by 14. I was thinking I was on a 12 by 16. That's okay. So
Does that make a difference in what you're doing?
it's just my proportions weren't feeling right to me. And then I realized, okay, that's why. It's not the size that I thought it was. I wasn't paying too much attention to that. Let's see, maybe I will just put some greens down in there. Just so we have some variety. That is permanent sap green deep. Is that what it's called? Yeah, permanent sap green deep. A little of the phthalo green, and all the other colors that I had mixed over here, kind of working together. And what I'm doing is getting a combination of warm and cool, warmer greens and cooler greens working together there. And I also need some darker greens. But since it is a sunny day, the shadows on some of these trees aren't going to be as warm. So like if we have the sun coming across this direction and my shadow is on this side, then sometimes if it was an overcast day, I might take the shadow side of a tree in here and warm it up more. Maybe with, if I'm trying to make it dark, maybe more of the alizarin crimson put in there, or transparent oxide red or something like that to warm it up. But since it's a sunny day, the shadow is going to be more on the cool side. So I'm leaving the green there a little bit cooler than I might otherwise. Okay, so right now we're just laying in the abstract patterns of color. And then we can start to refine those into something recognizable with little color flourishes and dollops and all that for highlights and structure. Okay, so I'll start getting some branches put in here, and then we can start to see the structure coming about. Actually, I won't necessarily paint those as dark as they look there, since they're aspen trees and they're in the shade, but I don't want them to be that dark. So I'm going to change up what I was doing there for the shadow side. I should have taken off the film from last night on these. All right. Movement is one of the primary things I want to do with aspen trees, create that movement. That's fun to look at. One of the reasons that I like to do aspens. Oh. Well, that's just causing me all kinds of grief there. All right. All right, so let's see if my basic structure is pretty miserable right now, isn't it? Let's see.
What'd you say? I love the limbs.
What don't you like about that, Bill?
Yeah.
Oh, just that for the benefits of you being able to get to paint soon, it's I need to create a lot stronger structure with it pretty quickly here. So right now it's a little bit crowded, and I want it to feel more expansive. So I need to do that. I need to fix some elements, pull some things farther apart from each other. And I really need to have this to be more like a 12 by 18 or something instead of 11 by 14. But we'll go with what we've got here and make this work. That's right. There is no try. Okay, so we're gonna, this is how we can create some sun coming across there, is taking, first of all, we're gonna employ the overlap here to start pulling some things forward and pushing other things back. And I have to remember, I've been negligent on this. I started a Patreon account, and I need to start uploading these to that first, letting them have first, because that's part of what I was going to do with that Patreon account. So I'll have to email you guys when I actually have this, if this turns out all right and it's worth making a video of. Then I'll email you when we actually get it up on there. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm creating some areas where I can have dark and light, shadow and highlight. So like with the, yeah, I should have taken all those skins off of there. So like with this, we can create, we can pull this edge away from that other, right here, pull it away from this part of the tree by putting some strong contrast in there. So the highlight is definitely going to be on the warmer side, since the sun is shining straight out. And there's going to be a little bit of a cool half-tone area, reflected light on the other side of it. Of course, if I use too much of that in there, it's just gonna look like it's lost into the sky. Okay, so I need to think this through a little bit so I can reclaim this piece. brush.
Is it the foreground? Is it right there in the middle that is not giving?
You mean like right here?
Yes. Is that what's
Yeah.
you want spread out a little more?
Yeah, I want these to feel like they're long and tall and stately and not all crowded. So like right now I have a circular thing here that's kind of making a bullseye here. It's almost like a halo effect. And so that makes everything, because this is all compressed by all of this, it feels crowded.
Okay.
So I just need to pop some holes in there and get that to feel stretched out more. Part of that I can do by decreasing the width of these, maybe, and by minimizing this down and making it feel smaller in there. In fact, some of that might be able to do just by pulling the sky, get more sky color coming down into this area, and minimize the mountain and all that we have back there, so that these become less of a area of interest. So if I take that and especially if I pull this down farther, then it's almost like we're up higher looking down. So that might help. Get rid of this color so we can get that blue down in there. Teaching a class. So, I'll talk to you later. My son calls when he's out driving a few times a day, so, but he generally forgets that I have class going on. Huh.
Yeah.
Hello? I said I'm teaching a class. I'll talk to you later.
Oh, I thought you said the 400 seconds.
No, I'll see. I gotta go. See ya. You didn't understand what I said.
Hit the hang up on him.
Uh-huh.
They'll stop calling if you don't take their calls.
Boy, can't you get a hint, kid? I don't want to talk to you right now. Oops. Not that dark. Okay. Uh-oh. Had that same dark mudding up my brush. All right, so now we can start pulling that across and open that up. That already feels better. Feels like I can breathe a little bit in there. And then later, I'll punch some holes in some of this too, with some of that sky color. And I might increase the intensity and a little bit more hue from in the sky rather than it's kind of gray right now instead of the blue that I want. But I'm gonna try to move more quickly and get to some of the structure of things so you can see how to apply some of these principles. All right, so I do like that some of these trees, limbs, pull down in here at other angles. Yeah, it's all the brush. It doesn't matter. All you have to do is get the right brush and it kind of paints itself. So that's kind of, that's what I discovered a long time ago. If I just buy the right brush, I don't have to know a thing about what I'm doing. Some people watching this probably think, well, you still don't know a thing about what you're doing.
No, I think people last night were very surprised at the light touch that you do have when you apply paint. Because when a lot of us apply paint, we pull off what's underneath.
Oh yeah,
We're too heavy.
lifting out what
Yes.
you don't want to lift up into it, huh? All right, so now I'll grab one of my little round brushes that seem to be getting handier and handier the more I use them. And we'll get some, and this is where you can have some fun with the branches. You know, it doesn't have to be straight. Get some movement in here and play with it.
I was trying to make little branches with the big fat brushes.
Yeah.
And then some of these branches will get those little tiny stems all over, and that can give a lot of breakup of spaces and movement, so you can have a lot of fun with those.
Nice little stroke.
Thank you. And you'll get like a branch coming off, so it feels like there are other trees around us without getting too carried away down there and getting it crowded again. Okay, so once we start to put in some little branches here and there, then we can start to refine areas more as well. Like we can put in some of the aspen characteristics. We see deer bites and all that stuff that happen out there.
Is that what those are? Deer bites? Really?
I don't know that all of it is deer bites, but a lot of it, yeah. That's what they called them when I was in Colorado. Living there. I never actually studied it out. That's just what we always called them, deer bites. So the deer do chew on the bark. But I don't know if everything that you see there, all those dark, are deer bites.
Oh, I did not know
I didn't want it that thick.
that. Is that around?
And that I didn't like. Yeah, that little brush is the round. That was too distractive. That branch in there. Okay, so let's see. Got some sun right there. You get a little bit of sun this side here too. Start to create the three-dimensional feeling by getting some sun shining in here. And we can do the same thing. You can do the same thing to other areas in here, as if the sun starts to pop through places. So it's going to filter down through leaves and that sort of thing. And we can capture some of that. In fact, we can pull that trunk there away from the other just by creating a highlight on the top. And then we can start to pop it away. So I need to reduce this one though, so that
I could do that.
I don't doubt it. I think you could do it pretty readily.
Yeah.
Just a few strokes of that.
That's amazing. Really, you brought that side of the painting to life like that.
And then adding in some individual leaves here and there. Can start to, and this is where we can get the nice thick dabs of paint. And overlap certain branches to start pushing parts of those branches in and have other parts coming out. That's how we can help to start creating depth in our pieces. Especially areas like this where you have a branch coming up and you want to create the feeling that one branch is closer to us and another branch than another branch in there. You can do that easily with some of the leaves. Popping a leaf, actually. That needs more hue. So then we start to push those branches back down behind. And we want to carry some of those down farther here. So coming in with some individual leaves like that will then help to define all of these big broad areas of color that we put in there. Then we will know that those are leaves, not just some mishmash of pigment up on there. And we can use these leaves as a means of guiding the viewer around the painting too. Depending on how we place our highlights and our shadows, we can lead the viewer with that. Like right now, this highlight on this trunk helps to pull the viewer into the painting And then these then, of course, pull the viewer up into this area. So then I also have to have things that pull the viewer back down into the other areas so they don't get stuck just in that one area. And that's what we'll do with some of these down here. Just put a little bit of leaf structure in some of those. And then we can start to pull some of the attention into those areas as well. And that's where we have, as the artist, we have to be careful that we don't get this so busy that it takes away from where we really want the viewer to concentrate. But we don't want it to be so boring that they never want to go down in there at all. Let's see, what else could I show? So even within some of these, you can see just adding in a highlight, maybe a halftone reflected light or something in here, we can start to create a real three-dimensional quality to the branches and leaves and the whole overall painting. Now this down here, I want to do more with, because right now the mountain is almost, it's like there's a sharp line. I want this stuff to come over the mountain, not the other way around. And
explain about that half tone.
It has to do with study how to draw a cone, and you have different structures of shadow on there and light. So within if you shine a spotlight onto a cylinder, you'll have the highlight, which is where the light's shining directly on. Then you'll have reflected light, which is usually on the back side and the shadow side, and it's getting it from a wall or the whatever it's sitting on. The light will be reflecting up to a degree onto an edge of that. So that's the reflected light, which is basically, this is reflected light from just the sky around there. So the reflected light, that's going to be determined on what your light source is and what it's bouncing off of. So right now this is just basically coming from the sky. The angle of that is facing towards the sky, so I'm getting some light, diffused light coming from the sky there. So that's going to be cooler. And then but you could have a warm reflected light too, because if you have a warm light over here and it reflects off of, let's say, some leaves that are orange, yellow and orange leaves. Well, if the light reflects off of those onto the trunk, then you could get a really warm light reflecting on there. So it's relative. It depends on where the light source is coming from. And then and when you look at a cylinder, let's see if I have something over there that would demonstrate that. Not particularly. Within the shadow area, it goes from slowly diffusing, from light to dark. When you get to the middle, you have that strong dark right in the kind of the midway between the highlight and the darkest shadow. And that becomes basically the darkest point, I think, except for at the base where it's attached to like the ground. If it was sitting on the ground, at that point where it's hitting the ground, that's where it's really dark, because no light is getting to that at all. And so you'll have the darkest line right there. If it's tilted up maybe a little bit, then you can see a band of dark. But then on the object itself, it still has light around it, so it's not necessarily, unless it's a really strong spotlight, it's still going to be getting some portion of light coming to it on the structure. So as it goes around, it's getting more reflected light than it did on that side that you're looking at. So that's why that tends to be darker. And then you come around, and there are a couple of little things, and I always forget all the terms for them because I just don't pay attention to them. I had to memorize them at one time, but I just don't draw and pay attention to the terminology with drawing that often. But there are all those little variations of shadow within the object. So a quick look on YouTube and you can find something that'll talk about all those specifically.
Even those books, those drawing books that have the ball and the cone and all that.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
The ball and the cone and all that.
Yeah.
That's the sort of stuff that you get in your head when you start, and then get rid of it as quickly as possible, so you just don't have to worry about it anymore.
I drink too much coffee.
Okay, just pulling the mountain color down and the leaf color up, foliage color up, so that the foliage feels like it's overlapping and pushing that hill or mountain back into the distance. Let's see, and we can break up some of this with a shadow here and there. Trying to get the feeling of we're at the top of trees and bushes and whatever else, you know. We're up a little bit higher, maybe up on a knoll or something, and looking down a bit. And so then we can just add in a little. Actually, that's way too many of them. I don't need that many little leaves down in here. Break up a couple of those bigger spaces so they're not so strong and dense. Give a little bit more feeling of airiness and let's see. So then look back into my mirror. Pull a little bit. Somebody's impatient out there with that horn honking. All right, that's probably good for today, so you guys can get some painting done too. What time is it? And is there more that you'd like me to cover on this one before you start painting, or? I was just trying to cover some of the basics with this one, of building up structures and spaces, so that you can kind of tackle some of those yourself today. Is there something else you'd like me to, more refinement or anything that you'd like to see in that?
You're awesome.
Ladies?
Yeah, thank you, Danny.
I love you, Daddy.
Yep.
Anything more you want Bill to show us in there?
Or would you like to get to painting? All right, then we'll end this for today, and if you want me to cover more on this particular one later, we can do that. But I think we've kind of gone over the basics of what you need to see today, and you can try to implement some of those yourself. Is that going? Okay, I'm gonna just thought of that. I'm going to put in a couple of little small branches to enliven this up a little bit. You can do the same thing with small branches and lighter color that we did with the dark. Let's see, actually I need to warm those up a little bit more. The white is not standing out as much because it's mixing with that light color in the sky. So these would be more useful up in the, to break up some of these areas. So we don't have to just break it up with bright leaves or anything. You can come in and pull in some bright branches as well. Especially with aspen trees, because they're full of nice bright highlighted branches. So employing some of that overlap, then we start to create even more separation of tree limbs, telling us which one is closer to us and which one's farther away. All right, so that's something that I thought might be useful for you to see as far as things you can do to create distance and or depth in a painting, and to break up some of these big color spaces that we create in the very beginning. So even pulling a nice bright branch this way, pointing us back to the trees over there, and I would want to play with that a lot more than that. Grab some. All right, so anyway, those are some of the things that we can do with the lighter paint. Okay, I don't need to finish this off. I just need to leave it so you guys can do some stuff. Okay, so there you go. Anything else?
Good job.
Okay. Patreon was created by a musician whose fans wanted to do something to repay him for all of the videos that he put out on the internet for free. Producing videos like the art instruction videos that I've been doing takes a lot of resources, money, time, especially time. And most artists don't usually have a lot of either of those in hand. So he created Patreon to kind of mimic the patrons of centuries ago who loved the arts and wanted to support the arts. I've put thousands of dollars and hundreds of hours into making these videos available. The editing on some of these has taken a lot of time and a huge learning curve for me just to figure out how to make it all work. And I've had several fans ask how they can help. Well, Patreon makes that possible. So if you're enjoying these videos and you want in any way to help offset the costs involved in creating them, then please click on the button below and go to my Patreon account and see what I offer there and how you can help. I appreciate everything that you do, and I appreciate you watching the videos. Like most artists who teach and share what they've learned, I really hope that these videos are a blessing to you and that they help propel your journey as an artist. So whether you choose to help make these videos possible or not, please feel free to keep watching and enjoying them. Now for those who choose to help me keep these videos coming in the future, thank you very much. And besides these videos themselves, I have some other great gifts that I'm offering as well. So go over to my Patreon account and see what I've got in store for you there. Thank you very much. You guys have a great time painting. Thanks for stopping by. Now get out there and paint your own masterpiece. Oh, and before you go, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And if you're interested in any of my videos, just go to my website at inmanfinearts.com and you can find them all there.